It was on this site 100 years ago that the worst terrorist attack in American history up until that point was carried out. At 12:01 p.m. on September 16, 1920, a bomb delivered via dynamite and horse-drawn carriage at Wall and Broad Street in Lower Manhattan killed 38 people and seriously injured 143 more. Within a minute of the explosion, which occurred just outside the offices of famed financier J.P. Morgan, trading on the New York Stock Exchange was suspended to prevent a further panic. The carnage was unlike anything America's largest city had ever seen and was splashed across headlines for days. As those who survived were treated, the investigation began with an immediate focus on several radical leftist political groups.
Even before the Wall Street explosion, there had been nationwide raids on communist headquarters, a result of the general belief that Bolsheviks were plotting to overthrow the government.
Anger over U.S. capitalism and wealth inequality had been growing for decades. The anarchists from Italy in particular became the primary suspects. In part, it was believed over their frustration about the imprisonment of Sacco and Vanzetti, two men who'd been erroneously convicted of murdering a guard and paymaster while they were carrying out an armed robbery near Boston the year before. At first, investigators were puzzled and considered it not an act of terrorism, since no Wall Street businessmen were killed. Instead, street workers, vendors, and clerks, many on their way to lunch.
It was noted that the statue of George Washington, just across the street, escaped unscathed. So did J.P. Morgan, who was vacationing in Scotland at the time.
Eventually, attention shifted back to disgruntled communists and anarchists, with the main focus on Mario Buda, a longtime activist and former associate of Sacco and Vanzetti. He left the country not long after, and in the end, no one was ever formally convicted of this heinous crime. Today, the only evidence that remains from that tragic event are from these shrapnel marks on the facade of J.P. Morgan's old building.
There was a desire to reopen Wall Street as quickly as possible, so some believe that important evidence got washed away after. But think about that. We just had the story about 9/11, and the men behind it have not been prosecuted yet. And this crime 100 years ago was never solved.
Yeah. Great piece of history.
Yeah, really fascinating.
Something people forget about.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.